Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much if you're watching this recording of the webinar. Due to technical issues on the day, we have actually re-recorded the session, so some aspects may differ slightly, but obviously the content remains the same. So the webinar is hosted today by myself, Michelle Hairsine. I'm one of the digital solution managers at City and Guilds, and we are also joined by Aisha Ball, who is also a digital solution manager. On the day of the webinar, Rebecca Hollenby, our EPA Partnership Manager for the Midlands, also joined us, but unfortunately for the re-recording today, she's unable to join us. However, like I said, the content of this re-recording is going to stay the same. So what we are doing today is we're going to go and recap the gateway process and the updates to the planning meetings from the webinar held in September. Then we're also going to show you a new permissions for user section to support your apprentice through their EPA journey. So obviously this is our housekeeping slide that we normally have up as part of the webinar. Obviously, because today's session is a little bit different, some of this aspect is not relevant. Just with regards to the questions, on the day of the webinar, we did do the questions section and we answered all questions during the webinar. So obviously everybody who attended will have been able to obviously see those and hear those questions. However, if there is further questions that you may have, please do not hesitate to contact us, and Aisha will give you the email address when she introduces our team on the next slide.
Thank you, Michelle. Good afternoon, everyone. So as Michelle's mentioned, my name is Aisha, and you can see me here on screen with the rest of my team. As digital solutions managers, we are here to support your platform experience. So if you feel like any of your members of staff or yourself may require training or a refresher session, please contact us on the email address that you can see on screen now, and we would be more than happy to support you with this. So that's on-boardingepa@cityandguilds.com.
Thank you very much, Aisha. So just as the next bit of information with regards to further support that you have for EPA, you have 3 EPA Partnership Managers. We have Janice, Rebecca and Maurice, who all look after the UK, and they look after different areas of the UK, and they're there to support you with all your EPA needs. So Janice usually looks after sort of like the north of the UK, Rebecca's like the Midlands, and then Maurice is the south. So again, their contact details are there, and please do not hesitate to contact them. So moving on to, if my slide moves on, there we go. Moving on to the agenda for today. What we are looking at is we are looking at recapping your gateway review and how you will provide us with 3 EPA dates at this stage. Following this, we will then go on and show you how to change the permission settings for your users within the platform, allowing specific users to see records relating to their particular standard or cohorts. And then on the day, obviously, it was followed by a question and answer session, which will actually be happening today. So what happened back in October, we listened to customer feedback. And to ensure that we continue to provide you with a great endpoint assessment experience, we have made changes to the gateway review. The benefits of these changes to a provider means that it should lessen your administration tasks. The process has been more streamlined, and you'll be able to provide us with your preferred EPA dates at the gateway stage. So this new process came into place from the 20th of October 2022 this year. And what it means is any standards where there is no mandatory requirements to hold a planning meeting, at your gateway stage, you'll be asked for your 3 preferred EPA dates. The bookings team will then aim to match one of these dates with an IEPA at the earliest opportunity. This means that the physical presence of a planning meeting will be removed or has been removed. However, this has been replaced with supporting videos designed for, first of all, training providers, and then also videos to support your apprentices. That also is to include remote and face-to-face assessment. The support videos will provide you with guidance, the next steps, to ensure that everybody is prepared for the EPA event to take place. So, what we're going to do today is we are going to demonstrate the changes made to the gateway questions. Now, this webinar was already running in September, but we feel that a follow-up is required for some people. So obviously that's why we're doing this today. Please note, for other standards, there might be a slight variation in the wording as they link to different standards. And the number of questions can vary between 4 or 8 questions within the section that I'm going to share. As on the screen today, you can see that I'm going to be showing you an automotive gateway. So obviously this is where we're saying some of the questions may vary. Can I also just highlight and point out at this particular moment in time that standards such as hospitality, there is no change being made to their process. A mandatory meeting is required for the vast majority of hospitality standards. And as usual, a planning meeting date will be requested at the gateway stage. The IEPA will then hold your planning meeting and then we'll book you an agreed endpoint assessment date. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to edit out of here, and you should be able to now see my EPA Pro demo site. So if you can see at the top, it says demo. So just so that I can make you aware that the site that we're using today is completely made up data and I'm not sharing anything that we shouldn't be sharing. When you come onto your home page, I'm going to be working into this left-hand side section under Gateway Review. So if I click into the Gateway Review section, what you'll find is you've got learners who are in the enrolled section and learners who are in the confirmed section. Just as a little bit of further information before we go into the Gateway questions, if you have your learners sat in the enrolled section, what you can do is you can press confirm. It then asks you a question, are you ready to confirm this date? If you are happy with the date that you've selected at the time, saying this is when you estimate that this person is going to be ready for endpoint assessment. So as you can see, this one is out of date. So I would need to change the date using the grey button to a date in the future. And when I'm happy with that, I can press OK. That learner will then go into the confirm section. And the reason why obviously that's important is City and Guilds plan for their IEPA needs under the confirm section, so they know roughly when learners are due to come through. And secondly, an important part for yourself, you can use this confirm section to go into the process button, which is the blue button at the right hand side, to be able to see what your gateway questions are going to be for the different standards that you have within your organisation. So under the Gateway Review, for what we're trying to show you today, you would go and find your learner in the confirm section. When you've found your learner in the confirm section, and I'm using Daniel Ridge today, and he's doing the automotive standard, I would go across to the blue process button. I would click on the process button and that would open up what is known as my gateway process. What I have here is 5 different steps that you need to obviously complete in order to submit that gateway. On the first page is where all your evidence is required to obviously process through gateway. And again, depending on what the standard is, the different amounts of evidence that you need to upload, but nothing has changed on that. That is all still the same. Section 2, again, has not changed at all, but any additional notes that you might need to submit in here can be added here. Additional time, SEN needs, things like that. Section 3, again, hasn't changed, but it's all your learner details. So again, you just need to be checking all the learner details, checking the versions and the standards that the learner's on is correct, and then obviously confirming further down at the bottom. Section 4 is the section we are looking at today to show how it has changed with regards to some of the questioning. So when you come into here, what you have is you have a little arrow and you can press on it and it expands the questions. And what happens here, like I said, depending on what standard it is, you can go in and have a look at your own standards and see what your questions are. What I would say is make sure you read the questions fully to make sure you're giving as much answers properly to the questions, and that way everything can be processed as quickly as possible for you. So under the first question, it says, please confirm where the EPA event will take place. If this is a different location to the workplace details which are held in EPA Pro, please provide the full address and postcode. So on section 3, it will have had the learner's workplace details. So if the learner isn't doing their endpoint assessment in the workplace, you need to add in the address and location of where this is going to take place. So things like automotive standards, sometimes these can happen at colleges. And again, you would just put in so-and-so college, the full address, including postcode, and then obviously you've got your details in there of where the event's going to take place. The next question for this one is saying about this standard will allow a group of up to 3 apprentices to be assessed at one time for a practical observation component only. It says, please tell us how many apprentices will form part of this group assessment booking for this component. All of the components may only be booked by individual apprentices. So for the automotive standard and some other standards as well, it means that the IEPA can come out, do something like a practical observation, but assess more than one learner at the time. So within here, we can say that there's up to 3 learners that can be done under that one IEPA, and you would put the number of learners that you're wanting assessing within that section. As the question also states, if, for example, there was a second component, which is like a professional discussion, that would have to be carried out individually, whereas the observation can be carried out as a group. The next section or question is asking you to please provide us with a preferred EPA date for the event. The date must allow sufficient lead time for gateway approval and bookings and evidence uploading. Lead times can be found, and there's a link here to our website where you can find the lead times. So what this is saying is, please give us a date when you want this endpoint assessment event to actually take place. But what you must make sure you do is go onto this link or go onto the website using this particular link and be able to find out how much time you need to give in order for either the IEPA to look at the portfolio or for evidence to be submitted and so on. So that would tell you the information, and then you can put a date within there. The next box is what time would you like the endpoint assessment event to take place? Again, if you've got an endpoint assessment which maybe only is an hour, then obviously any time of the day is appropriate to put within the timescales. But if it's a whole day assessment, obviously you'd want to start it in the morning to give you as much time as possible for the event to happen. So just bear that in mind. The next question down says, we will endeavour to match your first preference for your EPA date. However, to avoid delays in the processing, obviously, of the endpoint assessment, please provide us with an additional 2 alternative dates and time. Now, by spanning your additional dates over a wider period of time may increase the likelihood of us being able to match your request. So if, for example, we're always trying to work towards your first choice EPA date, however, what we're asking for here is 2 more endpoint assessment dates and times that would be suitable for yourselves, your learners, etc. So we want you to put them in here so that if the first one isn't available, we can go straight away to the second and then straight away to the third. We're also asking here, please provide us with a name and number for the contact on the day. They must be contactable during the endpoint event should we have any issues. So again, please make sure that that person is somebody who is available on that particular time and date when the event's taking place. This next question is, do you have any special requirements that require a pre-event call? If yes, please detail the nature of your requirements and the details of the appropriate contact so we can discuss your request further following gateway approval. So if, for example, you do have a learner who's particularly anxious and nervous about the endpoint assessment and you believe that like the planning meeting may have helped them be prepared for the endpoint assessment and things like that, please put your details within this section, and obviously somebody will contact you to discuss this further. The last section is any other information you would like to share with us. And again, anything that will help the IEPA, some sort of questions that might have happened on planning meetings before was like things, if they're doing a face-to-face observation, maybe is car parking available, or anything else about the learner that you think we might need to know in particular to make sure the endpoint assessment happens appropriately and fairly for that learner. So that is all your questions within that section. So once you've read through these, answered them fully, you can then go on section 5, which is a declaration, which is exactly the same. No changes have been made here either. And when you are happy, you would toggle the red button there, which would allow you to submit the gateway down at the bottom, and obviously submit your gateway. If you're in this section and you just want to have a look for information wise, you can just cross and it wouldn't save any of the information that you've saved within this section. If you have made some changes to it and you would like to save that details but not submit gateway, you can also press the save button. And that is the changes to the gateway review process. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, and it's going back to obviously our introduction slide. And what I'm just going to do is I'm going to hand over now to Aisha, who's going to be able to show you about our new change and give you an update about that. So let me just pass you over.
That's lovely. Thanks, Michelle. I'm just going to start sharing my screen. If you can let me know once you can see it, that would be brilliant.
I can see that. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the update that was released earlier this month. And that's when you're adding your sub-users to the platform, how you can set the permissions for those users, and also how you can edit your sub-users that you've got within your organization as well. So from your main dashboard, you will need to access your profile, which is in the top right-hand corner, and then select Edit and View Sub-Users. So this allows you to see all of your users that are within your organization. Now, as the primary user, you can also delete any of the sub-users. So if somebody leaves your organization or they're no longer working with your apprentices, you can delete them from the platform by using this little delete button here. Now, as the primary user, you can also add people to the platform and set their permissions. And to do that, you would select Create New Provider User. This then opens up a window with 5 tabs, and the first tab is the User Details tab. So here, we're asking you to complete all the mandatory fields that have been marked with an asterisk. Now, we would recommend that the email address is the username, and that avoids any duplicates within EPA Pro. The next tab is the Permissions tab, and this is where you can set what permissions your sub-user will have. So by using the drop-down, you have the option for a provider read-only. Now, as a read-only, this allows them to see your apprentices. It allows them to manage their own communication settings, to view the dashboard, and to have access to the support materials and to-dos. Now, please note that if you do set a sub-user as read-only, they will have no other functionalities within EPA Pro. So they won't be able to progress apprentices through to their assessment stages, and they won't be able to upload any evidence for your apprentices either. Now, the next option is the provider default. Now, the provider default allows the sub-user to have all the same permissions as the primary user. The only difference is that sub-users can't add other sub-users to the platform. So only a primary user can add your sub-user to the platform. The next tab is the Sub-User Details tab. And this is currently not a tab that we're using within EPA Pro. So this has no effect on anything within EPA Pro at the moment. The fourth tab is the Standards tab. And this is where you can assign your standards to your sub-user. So you can drop down the Standards tab, and this will display all of the standards that you're approved to deliver within EPA Pro. So if you have a sub-user that looks after particular areas, you can come in, you can select them, and then at the side, you've got this Add Standards button. By selecting that, you will see all of the standards that you've selected appear below here. Now, again, you can come in and you can remove these standards at any time. So to do that, you would just click on the delete icon, and that standard would then be removed from that sub-user. Now, the fifth tab, which is the Apprentices tab, this doesn't come into action until you've saved your provider user. So to save your provider user, you would select the blue button in the bottom right-hand corner, the Save Provider User. You'll then see your sub-user appear in your list, and you can go in using the Edit button and then go straight to the Apprentices tab. Now, to assign apprentices to your sub-user, you will select the grey Assign Apprentices and then Apply Filters. This will then give you a list of all of your apprentices within EPA Pro. To assign them to your sub-user, you would select Assign in the Actions column, and you would see that the blue Assign then changes to green Assigned. By closing the window, you will be able to see all of your apprentices that have been assigned to that sub-user. Again, as the primary user, you can come in and you can remove any of these apprentices at any time by using the delete icon, selecting OK, and you'll see that that apprentice is then removed from that sub-user. Now, if you wish to bulk assign your apprentices or bulk assign standards to your sub-user, you can do this by going back in to your profile, selecting the Edit and View Sub-Users, and then just here, you have this bulk import option. By clicking on that, it opens up a window, and we have created some example CSVs to allow you to bulk upload your apprentices or to bulk assign by standard. So you would drop down example CSVs and then either select Assign Standards to Sub-User or Assign Apprentices to Sub-User. This will then open up a document and you will be able to complete your information. Now, we have added on here some example data for you. So you would need the user ID username, the apprentice ID, and the apprentice ULN to bulk assign your apprentices to a sub-user. Once you've added in all of your information and deleted out any example data, you will then save this document to your computer and then choose the file from your computer and select Upload. Your apprentices will then be bulk assigned to your sub-user. Again, to assign standards to your sub-user, you will open up the CSV. We have the example data in here for you again. You would need the user ID username, the external standard ID, and any specialism IDs for the standard. Again, save the document to your computer, choose the file, and then select Upload, and your standards will be bulk assigned to your sub-user. That covers the release that came earlier in the month, so I'm going to hand back to Michelle and she will bring us back to the presentation. Is that handed over to you, Michelle?
Sorry, I was on mute. I am just going to get that up now.
Fantastic. We can see that.
Yep. I'm just getting onto the actual slideshow so that everybody can see. I'm just moving through the slides. And as you all saw on the actual day, these are our backup slides for when things don't go according to plan. So just a little bit of extra information on some upcoming, coming soon to EPA Pro. So if you've been attending some of our previous webinars, you may have recalled we've been talking about a change to the appeals process coming soon. This is still in production and we hope to obviously continue and have further updates in the new year. What the update is going to be, it's called Inquiry After Results and it's linked to the appeals process. So what we're trying to have in place is if a provider wants to raise an appeal, there will be an easy way to do this on the EPA Pro system, and then you'll be able to track the status of the appeal within the platforms. You'll be able to get notifications so you can exactly see where you're at with regards to that appeal, making things easier for you. So obviously we will update you with that in the new year when we have any further information on that. As with all elements that go live within the platform, we will continue to hold webinars to talk you through the process and again do the short videos. And I'm not sure whether Aisha actually had mentioned, but there is a short video that would be found within the supporting materials section linked to what she has also shown you, and lots of other bite-sized videos that we have in there for you. So obviously, as what I've just said, is any changes, we always make sure we update you and support you with those changes. So the next slide is obviously linked to questions, and we are not covering the questions today because we don't have a live audience with us. It's a re-recording. However, like I said, is on the day there was lots of questions given or posed to us, and which we answered. However, if you do have any further questions or queries, please do not hesitate to contact us, and you should be able to now see our contact details on the screen. So if you have any questions, queries, please send them to us on our generic email, which is on-boarding EPA@cityandguilds.com. We've also got a contact detail there with regards to the ESFA certificates. Any questions, queries linked to that section, you would go to ESFA cert claims at cityandguilds.com. For any ongoing EPA Pro queries, please email centresupport@cityandguilds.com, and Centre Support can also be contacted on the following telephone number, which is 01924 930 800. So that brings us to the end of the webinar. So thank you very much, obviously, for joining us on the day and obviously receiving this recording as well as the webinar. Thank you very much, Aisha, for joining me and showing us through the screen today and the demonstration without any technical issues.
Thank you to you as well, Michelle.
And thank you very much, and goodbye to everyone. Thank you. Bye.